This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
We know you have a lot on your holiday to-do list. And at the UPS Store, we're here to help. With our pack and ship guarantee, your gifts will arrive intact or you'll be reimbursed. Got holiday cards to print? We're also the premier printing store. We've got everything you need for every way you holiday. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to our Sunday show. Tonight we have a good one. We worked hard all week training soldiers here at Fort Campbell, and now Sunday I get to do a live show from home. So I'm glad to be here and glad to have you all out there listening on About Face Radio, on our YouTube at the Misfit Nation, and any one of our social media platforms. Like I said, tonight we have a good one. Our next guest is a principal ally and founder of marketing agency Allies for Me. He uses a proven method that mimics the stages of courtship. Allies for Me helps companies find strangers and convert them into high-paying customers. It's an 8-stage customer value journey is the framework that leads someone from first contract to post-purchase. Our guest is also a former U.S. Marine. You're not an ex-Marine. You're always going to be a Marine for the rest of your life. So he's a former Marine. I'm sure he still likes his crayons like the rest of the Marines, but we won't hold that against him. And without further ado, let's welcome Marine veteran Craig Andrews, speaker, marketer, writer, and of course, always a Marine. Welcome, Craig.
Hey, Semper Fi. How you doing?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. And, we were talking in the green room. I'm doing way better than the doctors predicted 2 years ago.
Heck yeah, way better. And if we all listen to doctors, especially when you get news like you were getting 2 years ago, I'll let you tell your story. When you get news like you're getting that you received 2 years ago, or your wife was receiving while you were in a different world there in a coma, that's a horrible thing to hear. And if you listen to that and you go with it, you wouldn't be with us now. So I'm glad you're here in front of us right now. And brother, I want you to share your story with the Misfit Nation.
Rich, I really appreciate this. I've been looking forward to this discussion. So you want me to start with 2 years ago? Or
you could, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, August 10th, 2 years ago, I walked into the hospital, told the folks at the desk, I'm having trouble breathing, except it didn't come out like that. It kind of came out with a lot of pauses and deep breaths because I couldn't say that in one sentence.
Right.
And they pulled me back behind the curtain and put me on oxygen. And a few minutes later, I heard my wife. She had dropped me off at the door of the emergency room. And I heard her on the other side of the curtain saying, "Where's my husband?" And they said, "We've got him, ma'am. You need to leave." So they sent her back out into the car in the parking lot in August in Texas and just told to wait out there. And what I didn't know at the time is it would be almost another 2 months before I'd see her again.
Wow.
And yeah, she'd see me sooner, but it was lights out for me. I was in a coma. And 11 days later, they shot me up full of morphine, and I quit breathing. And just for anybody that's wondering, I had COVID. I had the Delta variant of COVID, and so they called her at 12:30 in the morning on the 22nd of August, and they said, "We need your permission to put your husband on the ventilator." And she hears me in the background screaming, "No ventilator, no ventilator!" And she said, "Well, he doesn't want to go on the ventilator." And they laughed at her and they said, "Well, if he doesn't go on the ventilator, he'll be dead in 24 hours. And wow. She said, "Well, how many of you had survived that you put on the ventilator?" And they said, "Nobody has survived." And that's the deal. That's why I was screaming, "No ventilator." If you went on the ventilator with Delta variant, which is what I had, you died. That was the outcome. And a couple days later, I went into kidney failure. A few days after that, went on dialysis. And then a few days after that, my right lung collapsed. And they told her for about a month that I was going to die. And they even had her meet with hospice to plan the day they were going to pull the plug. And I woke up 6 weeks later, completely atrophied. I could lift a finger or a toe. That was it. Couldn't lift an arm or a leg. Had no muscles. My head was still really scrambled. And when I was in my coma, I had a whole bunch of dreams that for me, for 6 weeks, that was reality. And those dreams were so vivid, I believed those were reality. As a matter of fact, about a week and a half or 2 weeks after I woke up, I started realizing that everybody around me believed something different than me. And so I called my wife over and I said, hey, I'm going to tell you some things. I need you to tell me if these things really happened. She's like, all right. And I think she was kind of worried about me anyway. She told me later she saw that as a good sign. And I asked her, I said, hey, have we been to Louisiana? She said, no. I said, we weren't in a resort in Louisiana. She said, no. Now, I didn't know Louisiana had resorts, but in my world they did. And I started telling her the story about how young ladies, so this resort had room service, but it was not your average room service. It was, let's say, an enhanced room service. And one of the things on the room service menu that was my favorite is I could dial in and some young lady would come in and spray raw cow's milk at my face. And it would make me feel better. And one time she comes in and she misunderstood what I was asking for and was about to offer one of their more traditional services. And I was like, no, just the cow's milk. That's all I want. And I went on to tell my wife the dream. And I said, at some point, they wanted me to leave. And they came in and announced on the speaker in the room. They said, Mr. Andrews, it's time for you to leave. I said, well, I can't move. You're going to have to come in and get me. And they're like, you need to leave now. And they started getting angrier and angrier. At one point, they said, if you don't leave, we're going to tell your wife about your room service. And I said, you can tell her. She knows I like raw cow's milk. There's no secrets there. And at one point, I tried to roll out of bed. I thought, if I fell on the floor, at least somebody would have to come in and pick me up and move me. But then I heard them mumbling in the background. And I heard them say, let's get his wife. And she came in, she put her hand on my left shoulder. And she said, Craig, this is Karen. I'm your wife. It's going to be okay. Now, when I told Karen this story, she sat back and she said, Craig, I said those exact words to you in your coma.
Wow.
Yeah. And, and something really interesting happened during those 6 weeks I was out. When I woke up, my trust in the doctors plummeted. It was through the floor. My trust in my wife, through the roof. All while I was asleep for 6 weeks. And the reality is my dreams were a reflection of reality. Yeah, they were widely distorted. So like that dream I just told you, at that time in the hospital, I had these respiratory techs that would come in my room several times a day, usually young ladies. And they would put a mask of nebulized albuterol on my face and would make me feel better and help me breathe. In my brain, in my state, I interpreted that as raw cow's milk. And so, so it was really interesting. And when I woke up, I had, complete atrophy. Even my vision was blurry because my eye muscles had lost strength. And so when I woke up, I was in the second of 3 hospitals. This was, they call it an LTAC. It's a long-term acute care facility. And there they got me strong enough to go to rehab. And then the last 3 weeks I spent in a rehab hospital where they taught me how to walk again.
And you hit a nail on the head with the ventilator story. As soon as you said they were going to put you on a ventilator, you yelled no. The first thing hit in my head, everyone that went on the ventilator during the COVID was never seen again. That everyone that you heard of was never seen again. And you had that in your wherewithal in your head, knowing that as they're saying ventilator, ventilator, you're yelling no ventilator, no ventilator. And your wife's on the other end of the line saying, he's saying no, but they still wanted to do it. And that was just like their push at this time to get rid of patients, really. If they put it on a ventilator, that saves a bed, because that bed's going to be empty here within hours.
Yeah, and it's there's some horrible things that happen. We've got a book that's coming out shortly where we tell the story of that. But here's 2 paragraphs out of that book from the hours leading up to them shooting me full of morphine. And when she said, hey, he doesn't want to go on the ventilator, they said, he's full of morphine. He can't make this decision. Well, what's interesting is morphine suppresses respiration, which you would think is a bad thing if you have a respiratory disease.
Yep. Calms you down.
Yeah. But so in the book, as it's talking about a couple hours before they put me on the ventilator, I write in there, and by the way, a little bit of setting earlier in the book, I introduced this doctor. I call him Droopy the doctor. And I said, if Droopy the dog was a doctor, he would look exactly like this man.
Wow.
And so that's a little bit of context for this, but the book reads, the doctor stopped by for a brief chastisement. Not Droopy the doctor. This guy was more like a schoolmarm with an exceptionally high opinion of himself. And his schoolmarm duties today were to inform me of my sins and how bad things happen to those who sin. As I've reflected on that conversation, I realized that he believed I would die in the next few days. So his priority was to make his last words to a dying man a chastisement, and my life was in the hands of such a person.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. And, obviously this is a show where you have a lot of vets. You're a veteran, and, the lifestyle. It's fun because I'm sharing a little bit more than I would, in a regular podcast, because, I don't know, we think differently. We've seen different things and we think differently. But the one thing that hit me as I was going through that is I credit the Marine Corps for me being alive. Well, I think it was a bona fide miracle from God. I think it was my wife who came in, changed the hospital policy where they originally told her she couldn't visit me. And she's like, nope, wrong answer. So she came in for an hour a day. And she'd sing to me and pray over me and say words of encouragement. But I think the third element is, Marines are just harder to kill. It's a mindset issue. And when I look at, when I reflect on what I had to go through in rehab to learn how to walk again, I don't know how I would have made it through that if it hadn't been for the Marine Corps.
Wow. That's outstanding. And who are you with in the Marines?
I was with VMA Q2. It was an electronic warfare squadron. We flew the raid on Libya in '86. We jammed radars. When we flew over, you either saw nothing on your radar or you saw a whole bunch of crap on the radar that was misleading. We'd paint, false targets on your radar, and you'd be shooting at ghosts. And so if you think back to the raid on Libya, there were 120 sorties in that raid, and there was one plane lost. It was an F-111. And what happened was they couldn't see anybody, and they're like, screw it, let's fire everything at once. And it was just pure dumb luck. They hit the F-111. Yeah. But so we, it was actually cool. You'll appreciate this. So electronic warfare, I worked in what they call it I level or intermediate level repair, which was the squadron would pull boxes off the plane, send them to us, bring them into our secure shop, and we'd repair them. And so there was a doorbell on the front of the front door of the shop, and to get in, you had to ring the doorbell. And if you didn't have the right badge, if you didn't have a badge to work in that shop, you had to be escorted. Didn't matter who you were. This. Doesn't matter what your security clearance is. If you didn't have a need to know, the only way you made it through that door was with an escort. Well, there's no officer wants to be escorted by some enlisted puke. Sergeant Major didn't want to come by and be escorted by us, so they left us alone. And it was fun. It was a neat place to work, and a lot of fun. Spent 6 years in the Marines and got out right after Desert Storm.
Oh wow! Okay, so you came in just after like Beirut time period, and went up that period through those things. So, yeah, so you hit those two highs, and Desert Storm, then you rode out. So that's a pretty volatile period you were in there for the Marine Corps, especially.
And it was interesting. I was in during both Reagan and Bush, and there was a big difference. I'm not criticizing anybody, but Bush was, after the Iron Curtain fell, Bush was like, he started talking about peace dividends, which ended up stimulating a recession. Just because he was like, hey, we can't continue to spend on defense like this. But during the Reagan years, we were fat. We had more Marines than we had work for. And the only way you could actually work on a piece of gear is if you were determined. You kind of had to push somebody out of the way, say, I'm going to fix this piece. And you could just kind of screw off. We screwed off a lot, even when we were working. But the Reagan years were fat, and when I was in boot camp, I had a brand new M16A2. It had never been issued to anybody else. I was the first one to shoot that one on the range. We got the 9mm, we got the Humvee, just all sorts of new equipment. And then Bush comes in and he starts cutting, and boy, we felt it, and when Desert Storm came around. So my squadron, we were the only squadron in the Marine Corps that did what we did, and we had 3 detachments, and one detachment was always deployed and, rotate out. And we were usually deployed to Iwakuni, Japan. That's where I was when the war broke out. And I actually stayed there because they sent the other 2 detachments to the Gulf. And which always puzzled me because we went from being very fat during the Reagan years to being too lean during the Bush years. And we had 6 birds per detachment. We couldn't fly 6 birds, wow, for each detachment. We, out of 18 birds, we could keep 15, 16, maybe 17 in the air, but we didn't have enough to keep all 18 in the air. So I don't know what they sent to the Gulf. I never saw those guys. I got back and they asked me if I was re-upping. I'm like, nope. And they're like, all right, you're out of here. And they just put me on terminal leave.
We don't need you no more. Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
And that slowdown with the H.W. Bush got exponentially worse during the Clinton years. It's when I started my time with Clinton and not seeing any raises, seeing people get kicked out, seeing no equipment. It wasn't until really GW when we started getting money again. So he flipped the switch on what his dad did and kind of helped us out a lot.
Yeah. And that's tough. And a lot of people don't get that. They hear about the, $700 toilet seats and what have you. And yeah, there's a lot of waste. Geez, look at the F-35 project. There's tons of waste, but it's when it comes down to the individual soldiers or the Marines, we're just trying to do our job and just need the tools.
Give us our E-tool, give us our K-bar. We can do what we have to do and move forward. And
yeah,
that's what it's all about. But we also want to talk to you about your business, man. We got to get your word out there about what you do and how you help others to create sales and get that marketing going. So tell us a little more about Allies for Me.
Yeah, so Allies for Me, we're a marketing agency, and we work exclusively with people that have high ticket products or services. usually high ticket services, usually B2B, not always, but our special formula, if you have a high ticket product or service that requires a high level of trust and a long sales cycle, we've got a solution for that. We've got a formula that we've developed over years that works really well. And so for those folks, we can help them close more deals faster at higher prices. And so there's a lot of people that would claim, to do what we do, and I think legitimately claim, but there's one thing that I figured out along the way, and it was just a way of putting food on the table. Because it turns out I suck at sales. I love marketing, but I suck at sales. And so when we needed to put food on the table, I was like, crap, what am I going to do? And so I started working on something. And in short, instead of selling, I figured out how to create an environment where people want to buy. And the key element of that environment is we do something we call an irresistible first-time offer. And one way of thinking about it, if you think about stages of courtship, you have an introduction, then you have conversation. If conversation goes well, then you have dinner. You have coffee. You have coffee. And think about that coffee date. You all drive there separately. It's often kind of middle of the day, afternoon, morning, whatever. There's not a lot of financial risk. There's no commitment risk. What the ladies tell me is they'll have a girlfriend that will ring in about 15 or 20 minutes to see if she needs a rescue. And you go on those because you hope for bigger and better things, but sometimes they end at the coffee date. And if that goes well, then you have dinner. And then if dinner goes well, then you have commitment. Well, I came up with this thing called first-time offer that's kind of like the coffee date. So if you have a service, and usually it's B2B service, coaches, consultants, agencies, could be other service businesses. We've done on the B2C side, we've done financial advisors, again, high trust, high ticket. And and what we found is this irresistible offer does a couple things. One, it compresses the sales cycle. And two, it gives you a vehicle to actually raise the prices on your core offer. And so let me give you a couple examples that you may have heard of some of these. So years ago, Columbia House Records had this deal where they would sell you 13 albums for a penny. So if you're wanting to build a record collection, this is back when albums were popular the first time. I see they're back again. If you want to build a record collection, Columbia House Records can get you 13 steps closer to your goal for 1 penny. All you have to do is join their record club. So we would call that a simple offer. And when I first started doing this, I tried something like that. And I can save your listeners the time. Don't do that. That's going to fail if you have a high ticket, complex service. So let me give an example of one that moves from a simple offer to a complex offer. Not one of the offers we made, but I like it because everybody gets it immediately and it makes a couple good points. Years ago, there was a guy named Bob Stupak that bought some dumpy old hotel at the end of the Vegas Strip. And now you would know that hotel as the Strat or the Stratosphere, but it used to be some dumpy thing, and he renamed it Bob Stupak's Vegas World. And he ran a special, and he said, give me $396. I will give you 3 days and 2 nights in one of my deluxe suites. When you arrive, there will be a bottle of champagne waiting for you in your room. All of your drinks on property are free, whether you're gambling or not. Even if you're sitting in one of our entertainment lounges, you pay nothing more for your drinks. Not only that, but for your $396, I will also give you $600 of chips to use in my casino. So there we've moved to a complex offer. And one of the ways that we describe it as complex is that offer has 4 deliverables. And we believe an effective first-time offer should have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 deliverables. That has 4 deliverables. And if you look at the 4 deliverables, 3 out of the 4 deliverables are worth more than the $396 because the $396 was a 10% discount on the published room rate. If you're sharing that room with somebody and you're going out to drink, two of you drinking for 3 days, if you're somebody who likes to drink, you're probably going to burn through $400, worth of booze, at a casino. And then you get $600 of chips for your $396, so sort of free money. And so what's really interesting about it, and one of the points that I like about that offer is if you're somebody that likes to drink and gamble, it's hard to say no to that offer. If you're like me, I'm not a gambler, and I'm sitting here, I'm drinking a glass of wine. I don't think the wine they're serving there is wine that I'm interested in. Not, it's certainly not going to be, overwhelming to me. So that offer isn't appealing to me. But here's the thing. Bob Stupak doesn't want somebody like me saying yes to his offer, because he knows he's going to make the most money if he can make sure every room of his hotel is filled with somebody who likes to drink and gamble. Because when they walk into that casino, that's where he makes his money. But do you see how that's an error? If you're somebody who likes to drink and gamble, do you see how that's a hard offer to say no to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in Sin City, so you're done at that point.
Oh, yeah. And so we build offers like that for people that have high ticket, usually services, high ticket service business, usually B2B. And they're really awesome. They're fun to put together, fun to see them when they come together, because you look at them and, one of the ways that we know that we're kind of over the target on the offer is somebody starts saying, whoa, we're giving away a lot for, whatever the price is. And we're like, okay, that's good. That's a good sign, because when you're trying to move somebody forward on this, you have a force working against you called the status quo. People resist changing the status quo. It's easier and less scary to just continue doing what you're doing. And even if they have a deep need, you have to kind of overcome that fear, overcome that status quo bias to get them to move. And so we just wallop the crap out of it with a unbelievably good offer, but it has to be properly structured. There's some really critical elements. And if you miss these elements, it's not going to work, or it's not going to work well. And I say that as somebody who always tells, I always tell my clients, hey, look, they're like, hey, what do you think my offer should be? And I say, I can't shoot from the hip. Every time I do that, it fails. We got a process. You got to follow the process. And it's funny, earlier this year, I put an offer together for myself, and I was mostly shooting from the hip. I was following my worksheets, but I skipped some important steps, and the offer wasn't working. And so I stepped back last week, and I started going through and following my process. And by golly, I'm like, oh crap, I missed that. And, and now I've got an offer that's, I think, pretty darn awesome. And it's going to work incredibly well. But it's really about bringing somebody in. And here's the magic. Here's where the magic comes in. Bring somebody in, solve a problem for them. And let me take this back to my time in the hospital. Remember I said after 6 weeks, my trust in the doctors had plummeted. My trust in my wife had gone through the roof.
Yes.
Maya Angelou had a quote that said, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And while everybody thought I couldn't hear them, as the doctors talked around me, they were speaking words of death and despair. When my wife was talking around me, she was speaking words of hope and life. And the experience that created changed the way I feel, changed the way I felt, changed the way I felt towards the doctors, changed the way I felt towards her. And when you bring somebody in and do a first-time offer for them, one of the things it absolutely has to do is solve a problem, hopefully solve a few problems. When you come shoulder to shoulder with somebody and you help them solve a problem, it generates a release of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone in the body. It's the hormone that's released when a new baby comes out of her mother's womb and is put on a mom's chest. Oxytocin's released in the mom, oxytocin's released in the baby. Tight bond is formed. When you help somebody solve a problem in their life, it releases oxytocin.
Wow. So when you started this with the first time offered FTO, when you came up with this or you started using this, what was the success rate at first, and where are we now?
Yeah, so my first time offer failed. My second first time offer failed. My third first time offer failed a little bit less.
Okay.
And it took about 18 months for me to get something that was sort of working. And over the last 5 years, I've really been perfecting the process. But when I have an offer dialed in right, if I present it, I basically half the people I present it to buy it. And of those, 80% of those buy my high ticket offer. And on the first part, I would say the reason for the 50%, actually, I got nervous last year. My closing rate on the first time offer started rising above 50%. And it actually made me nervous. That wasn't what I wanted, because it's designed to be a filter. You don't want everybody saying yes. Remember Bob Stupak's offer? If you don't like to drink and gamble, you're probably going to say no, because there's better hotels in Vegas. He had a dumpy old thing. And so last year I saw it rising, and guess what? The tail end of that started falling. I found out what happened. I had a referral source that was prepping people, and they'd say, hey, when you talk to Craig, he's going to make an offer. Make sure you say yes to whatever that was. And I called my referral source. I'm like, dude, I really appreciate the referrals. Please quit prepping them. Just send them in cold, and don't tell them to say yes to whatever, because that's a filter I need for this to work. Because what we do, and again, if anybody's listening that has a high, you're in the high ticket B2B service space, you never close deals in one conversation. It's usually you've got a whole bunch of conversations, you have proposals, you have all that kind of crap. We close people in one conversation, but not for our core offer, for our first time offer. And because when it's working as a filter, we just make sure we're only talking to our best buyers, like Bob Stupak's offer. He just wants, Bob Stupak only wanted people that like to drink and gamble saying yes to his offer. And we have carefully designed filters in our offer to make sure that we're only bringing in people that we work best with. And what's cool is when you do that and you help them solve a small problem, when you ask them to write the big check, they're usually pretty eager and anxious to do so. Actually, we don't even ask. They usually come to us and they're like, okay, we got this. What's next? What do we do? I want to continue with you. What's the next step?
Outstanding. And it seems like you build that relationship too, so you have them there so you can go back to that well again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, and that's a really important message for anybody that's listening. This is not some trick. This is not some trick. This is not some scam. It's not a gimmick. This is about serving people. You're going to be very generous in these offers. You're maybe even uncomfortably generous. I hope you're a little bit uncomfortable when you first start doing it, until you start seeing how well it works and you start feeling good about it. If you try to use this as a gimmick or a scam, it's not going to work. I'm absolutely convinced, one, you won't be able to build one. And two, if that's your mentality, you're probably not going to offer it. And three, if you're more of a taker than a giver, it's going to come through in your body language, and it's just the system won't work for you. But if you're a generous person that genuinely likes to help and serve people, and you lead with this, okay, yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of money on the front end. But on the back end, this has been the primary vehicle we've used to raise our rates. Our rates have gone up significantly since doing this because we build so much trust.
Definitely do. And I think once you build that trust, it's almost like a tidal wave at that point. It keeps coming into you at that point, because then you have the word of mouth, and you need to go to Craig, you need to go to allies from me, and they'll help you out. They'll help make you the person that your business, the business that it needs to be with their marketing skills.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, one of the things that we like to say is if you wouldn't send your best friend through your sales funnel, then you have a broken funnel.
Right.
Seriously, if you have like a VIP door for your buddies, you got a broken sales funnel. The first time offer, that is our VIP door. And guess what? Everybody that we offer it to is a VIP. The other thing is we don't offer it to everybody. So when we jump on the call with somebody and, we're trying to figure out, can we help them? If we can't help them, and if we conclude that for whatever reason, some people we can't help because we can't help them. Some people we can't help because they don't want to be helped in a way that we can help them. And if either of those come true, in our initial conversation, at the end of the conversation, we just don't offer the offer. We just tell them, hey, we don't think we're the right folks for you. But for those that do, every one of them goes right through our VIP door. And let me give you an example about how seriously I take this. And one of our beliefs is, if you had a friend come to you in need, and you could actually solve whatever need they had for them, and you thought about all the different things you could do for them, your answer better be that the best thing for them is to buy your first time offer. And a time I had to put that to work was actually, this goes back 2 years, almost, just a couple days from now, 2 years ago. I got an email on August 18th from a lifetime mentor, retired Marine Corps major. He was a Mustang, so he went up through the enlisted ranks, got commissioned, made major before he got out. His name's Mike. His wife's name's Brenda. Mike and Brenda have had more of an impact on my life than anybody other than my own parents. They've been fantastic mentors. And August 17th, their daughter died of COVID. She was on the ventilator. August 18th, I got an email from Mike telling me about his daughter's death. And 2 days later, I went on the ventilator. 4 days later, I went on the ventilator. And when I got out of the hospital, Kristen's brother, Michael Jr., emailed me and said, "Hey, Craig, I need some help with marketing. Can you help?" Well, at that time, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't do a lot. And I said, "Michael, I'm taking the rest of the year off. And why don't you reach out again?" And secretly, I was kind of hoping he would go away. I just didn't want to muddle that relationship. He came back right after the new year. And, I was looking at my diary, my journal today. And my first days back at work was, work an hour or two, sleep an hour or two, work an hour or two, sleep an hour or two. I was depleted. I was rebuilding from scratch. And so I say, "Hey, Michael, I'm still not ready. Can you come back a little bit later?" He came back a third time. And I was like, "Okay, let's jump on the phone." And we jumped on a Zoom call, and I listened to what he had to say. And immediately I knew he would never be a client of mine. His revenue didn't support our fees. And as I looked at it, I was like, the last thing I wanted to do was turn him loose on some marketer, some low-cost marketer that I was afraid would give him bad advice. And the best advice I had for him was, "Michael, you need to buy my first-time offer. It's going to give you a marketing plan that's going to help you make better decisions to help grow your business." And what's really interesting is at that time, and I'm sure I have to believe at some point you've either witnessed this or experienced this yourself. Maybe some of your veteran listeners have experienced this. At the time, I was really struggling with survivor's guilt. I survived a disease that killed millions, and I still don't understand why. And that disease killed Michael's sister, and I got to live for some strange reason. And even while I was wrestling with all that survivor's guilt, the best advice I could still give him was, Michael, you need to buy my first time offer. And to this day, I can look his dad in the eye and say, I took care of your son.
So that's outstanding right there. You can wake up or go to bed every night knowing that you were able to take care of him, even though you had that guilt inside. And a lot of us, like you said, have that same kind of guilt that for different reasons, going to war and losing a buddy, or home when he's deployed and your buddy dies. And why was I spared? Why was I able to sit at a desk when they died? Those are questions you can rattle on your head. You can let them kill you, or you can let them fuel you to be a better person, a better human as you move forward in life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's funny. Right down the road from me is a Marine named Dakota Meyer. He's second youngest living recipient of the Medal of Honor. Used to be the youngest living recipient. And I've met him and at a luncheon a few years ago, but I was looking at his website and I saw him write something on his website. And it was that he strived to live a life that honored the Marines that died. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I know exactly what that means. My phrase is to live a life that's worth living.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think we all have to have that same kind of mantra, and not just like you heard us in our intro, don't go to the darkness. Don't give up the fight. We need you here. We need you. We want you to be in this fight. So that's, I think, what you've done with that, and turned that page and made the best out of it. And you coming out of the COVID death grip and coming back to us and being able to do what you're doing still now is just an amazing, I guess, a tribute to you and to your upbringing, and to, like you said, the hard-headedness of the Marines, that you can't die because the Marines told you can't until it's your time. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And, you were talking about the dark place, so the second hospital I was in, as my mind started clearing, I started realizing what I was up against. There was one morning I went dark. I went really dark. I could barely move. I think at that point I could lift an arm and a little bit lift it. I don't think I could lift my legs yet. And I was in constant pain. Everything hurt. And I'm sitting there in bed and I was like, this sucks. You know what? Tomorrow's going to suck. And the day after that's going to suck. And I just started spiraling downward. And around lunchtime, I caught myself mentally. I was like, Craig, you can't go there. You just can't go there. Pull out. And fortunately, I was able to refocus my mind, refocus my thoughts, get focused back on recovery. And, and to anybody listening, I'd encourage, if you're in a dark place, do that and reach out. You don't have to do this alone.
Definitely. You're not in the fight alone. You have brothers and sisters all around you. You may not think they care about you, but they do. They care about you. Everyone has this crazy busy life right now because it's so easy to be busy right now. But every one of them will stop what they're doing to talk to you so that you're able to talk to them again another day. So just remember that. Craig, can get off the darkness here for a little bit.
Yeah.
You also have a podcast. And tell us about the title of your book and when it's going to be released, where people can get it. And then let's talk about your podcast a little bit.
So I've got actually 2 books coming out. Okay. And we're still reworking the titles. The one is a book my wife and I wrote about our journey through COVID. And the title we picked was, turns out somebody was publishing a book this year with exactly the same title.
Wow.
And so the one we're debating on is Life in Two Worlds, Escaping the Shadows. And so that's the one about COVID. Maybe something similar to that. The other book, and I just finished the first draft this weekend. I'm working on editing. Hope to have that. Don't hope, I will have that to the editors this week. It's called Make Sales Magical. Close more high ticket deals faster at higher prices. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Don't have the exact date on when those books are coming out, but it'll be soon. Something else I want to celebrate that. And I tell you what, if anybody can make it to Austin, Tuesday afternoon, August 22nd, so I started doing something when I got home and I started recovering. I was still in a wheelchair and I started doing this thing called Camp Gladiator. And initially it was just to work on upper body strength. And so Tuesday, the 22nd, is the 2-year anniversary from when the docs told my wife I was going to die. And I'm going to Camp Gladiator that night. Normally I have to do a 30-minute workout because of some complications with my kidneys. That night I'm doing a full hour and I'm just doing balls to the wall. And I hope anybody listening that's in Austin, come out to Lake Hills. We meet in the parking lot of Lake Hills Church, 6:00 Tuesday night. If you're not in Austin, fly down. Come on out. You'll get to see me wheeze and stumble and look like I'm about to pass out.
And Southwest flies into Austin, I think 4 times a day just from here in Nashville. So I think it flies in a lot of flights from Southwest go there. So those are your cheapest flights, Southwest, or maybe some Airbus or something get there. I don't know. True Blue Airlines or something. Spirit. They'll get you there cheap if you want to go cheap.
Yep. Yeah.
And how about your podcast, Craig?
Yeah. So we just got a podcast called Leaders and Legacies, Making an Impact Beyond Yourself. And so the inspiration for that was, I was in a coma for 6 weeks and then my mind was mush for another couple weeks. And when my mind started clearing, my wife told me about how my team stepped up and ran the business without me.
Wow.
Freelancers reached out and said, hey, we'll do whatever's needed as long as Craig's in the hospital. And, I consider that the greatest accomplishment in my career. And I think there's a lot of leaders out there that need to be encouraged and realize the impact they're making beyond themselves. And so we're interviewing those people and we're cheering them on.
Outstanding. And that speaks volumes to you as a person, that all those people would step up while you were down, while you were at the door. They were down, they were coming to help you out and help you and your wife and do what they can to keep this going and keep everything, your momentum going. So that's outstanding.
Yeah.
And Craig, how does someone get in contact with you if they want to either have you come on a show like this or maybe speak to motivate a youth group or maybe a professional business group? How do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so if they come to our website, alliesforme.com, that's spelled ALLIES, the number 4, me.com. There's ways to contact me there. I've got a speaker page there. You'll see if you go to podcast, under that, you'll find out how to register for our podcast. If you want to be on that, if you want me to speak at your event, there's a link there for our speaker page. But I've got a gift for your audience. Actually, I have 2 gifts. And so we talked a little bit about first-time offers. I believe high ticket sales is broken, and I'm committed to changing that with first-time offers. So I have a guide that helps you avoid some of the mistakes I made, and also have 23 days access to a self-paced course to help you put yours together. And just for clarity, the reason we limit it to 23 days is we study humans, and we know if you come sign up for a free course, next month will come, you haven't done it. Month after that will come, you haven't done it. 6 months from now, you've forgotten about it. I'm in the business of changing lives. And when we put a 23-day cap on it, guess what? People come in, they consume the content, they start putting it to work. We see it in the analytics. So all you have to do is go to alliesforme.com, allies.com/MisFitNation. All one word, all lowercase, alliesforme.com, MisFitNation. And there will be a little form you can fill out, sign you up to get you access for those 2 gifts. And I hope anybody doing a high ticket sale, I hope you do that, because if it changes your life as much as it's changed mine, it'd be wonderful.
Outstanding. And that website is going across the bottom as a banner right now for those viewing this. And it'll be in the show notes for those who listen to this on our podcast apps. Craig, thanks again for being flexible. I know we had to cancel one time before because of my awesome work schedule, but thanks for being flexible and awesome sharing the story with us. And I hope that this was able to reach someone and teach them. Reach one, teach one is what we like to do here at the Misfit Nation. And I think your story is impactful, and it should reach at least one, maybe more than that.
Rich, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
I had a great time. Have a good night.
All right.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. It's themisfitnation.com to catch up on all of our episodes and also to get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are